Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, whenever you watch this. This is Dee. I'm going to do a follow-up to the Amtrak Rail Pass trip, cross-country trip I took late this spring from Cary, North Carolina to Flagstaff, Arizona. And then eventually I was supposed to go to LA for a weekend. I wound up in San Diego. I want to thank everybody for really liking the original video I did of how to do a rail pass. I got a comment just the other day saying it was an awesome video. Thank you very much. I was just doing it just to mainly for myself and friends and family, let them know what I'm going to be doing, but I'm glad it was helpful. Now after I return, I'm going to give another video of how it actually went. I had my plan in place, but how it actually went and what I would change, and the flexibility of it all. So okay, the first thing is, if you'll look, I'll have a link below. I'll have a link below to the original video in case you see this one first, and you'll see the tickets all lined up, and you'll see the rail pass standing up. Well, the rail pass right now will not stand up. It's been over poor thing's been over 6,000 miles, like my body. It won't stand up anymore, but there's the rail pass. I'll show it to you. Again, I bought a rail pass for $459. I had 15 days to do 8 segments anywhere in the country that Amtrak runs. That's why I decided to go to Flagstaff for a week and then take my last 2 sections to LA. That sort of did and didn't work out that way. And then I had projected it to cost $1,200, around $1,200. I did not figure in my food. No, I take that back. Yeah, I projected it to cost around $1,000. It did not include my food. I think I take that back. So I try to do my trips around $1,000. I plan to eat and carry my food and whatnot. So you get a whole ticket. I'll just recap what it is. It's a rail pass that you get. I go to your local station. They can help you out. They have larger ones that are more expensive for longer periods of time. I think 8 segments for me is fine. 15 days is fine. So I have the rail pass. They do give you hard copies of tickets when you make your plans. So I will tell you, in the first video I had all the tickets lined up. This is what I came back with. There's stubs. I don't even think I have all the stubs. What happens is the conductors come by. They take the tickets. They have to turn these tickets, hard tickets in. They are not e-tickets. So they have to take them back in, turn them in, and they will scan your rail pass. And your rail pass needs to be scanned and pass through a scan. That's why, see right there, they do scan that. Every time you get on a train, they will scan your ticket. The tickets also have a place to scan. For some reason, I wound up with a ticket. I don't know how that happened. But I do actually have a hard copy of a ticket that was not taken. Maybe because that's from Los Angeles to Chicago. So they scan that there, and then it matches your rail pass. Needs to match. That's important because mine didn't, because it got changed around. So anyway, so they have to turn it in, and you have your stubs. I like to keep my stubs. I like to keep reminders of where I've been. So a couple of things I was going to take it in chronological order, but I think what I'm going to do is just take it according to subject matter, what actually happened, and how I would do things differently, or just what to maybe expect. I first told you that once you get your tickets and once you start your trip and the first scan goes, after they scan you the first time, you can't make any changes. That's what it does say, and that's what I was told. The first time I took the trip last year, I went on the California Zephyr. This year it was the Southwest Chief out of Chicago to California, and both across country trains. And I was told both times it is not. Typically it is not. What happened to me was when I got to Flagstaff, I had a wonderful time. Had a wonderful time and trip all the way around. But I had a wonderful time. Stayed close to a week, 4 days I think. That's a week to me. It turned out I ended up with edema on my feet, legs, really bad. I had headaches. Found out from some of the locals, and then I got back and Googled it. I found out I had what they call altitude sickness. I did not check the altitude before I went. I have been up to 5,000–6,000 feet before. Flagstaff is a little over 7,000 feet. Didn't think about it going to be a problem. For me, it was. There are ways of going about that, so I'm going to digress just for a second here. Before you plan a trip, please check your altitudes, and I'll get more into that a little bit later. It can make a difference to your trip. So what happened was I was to go to LA that Friday, spend the night overnight, save hotels, spend the night overnight, coming back, save hotel. Well, I got to feeling bad, did not want to go. I have a ticket. I was going to stay in the train station, which is open all night long, stay in the train station, then take my ticket and come back home. I did not want to go. I was not allowed to do that by the person working there. Found out later I was, and I have never had problems with that on any train I've been on before, any train station I've been on before. This guy did not want me in there, even though other people have spent the night in there before. He wanted me out, gave me 15 minutes to go somewhere, figure it out. That took me for a loop. This is an odd thing. This is not Amtrak. I did file a complaint when I got home. This is not Amtrak's policy, and not Amtrak not to help you at all. Would not give me a ticket to come back home. Said there was no space. Would not help me with anything. It happened to be a huge festival there that weekend. There were no hotel rooms. Had there been a hotel room, the minimum price would have been $250. The room I had for $80 during the week suddenly turned to $250 if they had a room, and that place was almost a dive. It was clean. It was no bugs or no anything. It was clean, very old, very basic. I have no clue what the Marriott and all the chains would have cost, but we're talking well over what it costs for this rail pass per night, and this was a couple of nights. So anyway, he told me I could change the rail pass. I think he told me that to get me off the train. Get me out of the place. So I wound up, didn't want to go to LA. I had heard from people in Arizona not to stay in LA, particularly if you're single, don't walk. I had heard several things. I didn't know. I just know I wanted to go home. But everybody said to go to San Diego. So I was able to go to San Diego. Now, how I worked that is that I took the sections, I kept my sections to Los Angeles. I had to buy one section. How'd that work out? I had to buy sections to go to San Diego, which was $30 a piece, which wasn't bad. It's a 3-hour train ride each way. Not bad. So that added to my overall. So I cut back. What I was supposed to do coming back was to stay overnight in Chicago. So I cut that out, not staying in Chicago, ride straight back, and then I went to San Diego for the weekend. So it actually only cost me $30 more instead of $60 more. That wasn't bad. I was able to get a hostel there in San Diego for $45 a night. So I had a place to stay, and there I went, and I enjoyed myself tremendously. So you can get your ticket. Technically, you can get the rail pass changed, Most places that I have been to, all the major cities, you cannot. This guy said you could. He did. Now the drawback to that, your tickets, your new tickets issued, and this is probably why I have a ticket in my hand here. The new tickets issued do not match your rail pass barcode. Remember I showed you they had to match the rail pass barcode. So the first time I got on the train, the conductor scanned my rail pass, scanned my ticket. It did not match. And I'm thinking, oh my, here I am in LA, because I had separate tickets to get the San Diego to LA. Here I am to LA to Chicago, and I'm not going to be able to stay on this train. But as it worked out, what happened was they can look you up in their little computer thing that they go and scan things with. They can look you up. He looked me up, and he saw that I did have a pass. I was supposed to be on the train, and they acknowledged the new ticket I had, and they took it. And so every time I went on the train, so we had to redo tickets. I redo several tickets. So every time I got on the train, when the conductor came by, I told him that it's not going to match the rail pass. He may have to look me up because I explained it, and it worked out fine. I would not recommend doing that. I'd recommend keeping to it, but if something really happens, in my case I was sick. In my case they told me to get out of the train station and not stay there, to keep my tickets the same. That did work. So technically you can get it changed, but I wouldn't get it changed just because you found something better you wanted to do. I would recommend keeping it the same way it is. I realize I'm getting long in here. So that's one thing I would change. The second thing that I would change is that the food. I said you can buy food if you're not getting a roomette. The food comes with a roomette or a bedroom. I rode coach. You can get access to the dining car. That's changed in a year. Their food has changed in a year. They're cutting back a lot of times. There's only food on cross-country trains. I was on Southwest Chief. I can only speak for that. But there was only food for those in coach if they had any left. I was not allowed to get a dessert. I was told by whoever was working there, I think she was halfway joking, but I think she was real. I said, can I get a dessert? Because she wasn't offering me a dessert, and they'd have an excellent thing I like. And she told me, no, just take the dishes as a souvenir. That was her answer. And I'm like, okay. I did not take the dishes, but I thought that was an odd response. So you may or may not be able to have access to the dining car. I found that out. I also found out that on this particular train, train ride back, the cafe car sometimes closes early. I think on the Capital Limited that happened to me. That's from Chicago to D.C. On the way back, I didn't want to spend money on a $7 hot dog. I ate more hot dogs and yogurt than I ever have in my life because they were the cheapest things on the train. I found out that I did get hungry and tried to carry food, but I got hungry and really wanted the dining car. I ate in the dining car 3 times because you do get hungry. So coming back, I was not going to eat in the dining car. Then I got hungry and I decided, yeah, I'll go get a hot dog before we get to DC. Okay, so they closed it. Usually they close it if the attendant has to go on break, but no, they closed it. And then they shut down the lounge car to the observation car. So all that was closed. And so I did not get to eat. I thought, well, I'll get something to eat when I get to D.C. because they have a lot of nice places to eat there, a lot of restaurants in the Union Station. At Walgreens, I'll give them a plug. Walgreens downstairs in Union Station in D.C. has a very good snack place. They even have sushi. I got 4 bananas on my one time. I thought, well, and they have sandwiches, they have subs, they have everything in the Walgreens. Very inexpensive, very good food if you don't want a restaurant. I'll do that when we get to DC. As it turned out, I didn't have time enough to do that because the train was late. So anyway, I didn't get to eat. So that may or may not work out now with your dining. Always have some kind of snack with you to get you through, and you may or may not be able to eat in the dining car if you're in coach. Or in the cafe car if they decide to shut it down early to clean it and get the car clean. I know that's why they do that. They're at the end of the line. They want to start cleaning the cars and get it over with. Okay. So that ends that. The reason I didn't get to eat when we were in DC, here's another thing. I experienced on this trip what I said in the first video, that if you miss your connection, they will make sure you get to your connection, so don't worry about it. The train was late. Trains usually do run late. I would suggest if your connection is 2 hours or shorter, my gosh, shorter, but 2 hours, plan to spend the night. The trains are going to run late. If they don't, it's a plus. If they run on time, it's a plus. But plan on them being late. Plan on them being at least 2 hours late. So in this case, coming back, we were late. I don't know exactly why, but we were late. I forgot now, but we were late. We missed the train probably, I think maybe about 10 minutes. The train coming from DC down to Cary, which actually was the Silver Star, which runs all the way to Miami, New York, Miami, big train. And we missed it. I wasn't the only one. I think there were 10 of us that missed it. They told us that they held the train. They didn't really tell us we held the train till we got on the Silver Star. The people on Silver Star told us. But they said run. So I had to run. So I did not get to stop into DC to get something to eat because the train was that late. The cafe car in the Capital Limited has been shut down. They don't even have a dining car in there, but in that train. They shut it down, so here I am not eating since breakfast, trying to avoid a $7 hot dog, which I probably should have done several hours earlier. So they held the train, but we had to run to it from one platform to another, but they directed us where to go. We got on the train. And everybody on there was like, oh, well, this is the reason we're stopping. So they waited for us. So that was good. That was their plan, their fault. So they waited for us. So that did happen. And it usually happens when I go cross country anyway. And they do wait and they do make arrangements for you. Just trying to think of other things that may have happened. And I would say with the rearranging what I did with my budget, because I like to stay within $1,000, it didn't work out. What I did do is I stayed overnight in DC going up to take it slow going up. If I had to do it over again, I would take my night extra coming back. I took it too soon. I wasn't tired. I was fresh on my journey. Everything was going fine. I really didn't need the break. I think you need the break coming back. It is a long trip. I would suggest, I do have a video about hacks, getting on the train hacks. One of the ones I'll mention here, I wish I had compression socks. I did everything I was supposed to do. Get up and move around, elevate your feet, drink plenty of water. I was in coach. I did not lie down for 2 days going, 2 days coming back. It's doable, but you have to remember, I'm retired, for example, so you have to say I'm not 20 anymore. My mind says yes, my body sometimes says no. So I had to work with the edema. It took quite a while when I got back for my feet to get right. I will say that I wound up with a broken toe. I did not realize it until after all the swelling went down. I am still 2 months later walking gingerly on my right foot. I'm still taping my toe. So it's not to say it's going to happen to everybody, but I do believe compression socks would have helped. I think I walked too much trying to get the movement from the fluid, and I think walking too much probably doesn't help either. And again, I'll get back with the, this is how I get back with the altitude. When you go on a trip, any kind of trip, but when you go on a trip, check the altitude. What I learned when I got back is the best way to deal with altitude is to go slow, which would mean a road trip. So had I driven in a car or ridden in a car and gotten out and a day here and gotten out a day there, probably would have been okay because my body would gradually have gotten used to the altitude, going from almost sea level up to past 7,000 feet. Did not realize Arizona was that high. Doesn't feel like it. I walked around the whole time I was there. I tried to stay hydrated, but I do think I got a little bit dehydrated. But getting back to the altitude, so if you fly or take trains, on the train you don't get off. There's not that many stops. If they're running behind, they're only going to let you at the stops, exercise / smoking stops, they call them, maybe 5 minutes. We stopped in Albuquerque for maybe 20 minutes, but then there was a little cafe in there that they wanted everybody to go eat in there. So that happens on every long distance cross country Amtrak train I have been on. There is one little sightseeing place they want you to stop. On the California Zephyr, you will stop at Dave's Depot, Colorado. So on the Southwest Chief, you will stop in Albuquerque, so you can go in there, a little tourist place. But outside of that, there's not much walking. I walked up and down the train as much as I could, but there's not much walking, not much getting used to the altitude because you're in the same kind of container, which is the train. So be mindful of that. I actually met a guy in the train station who had to be medevaced out of the Grand Canyon the day before due to the same thing, altitude sickness. He'd hiked the Grand Canyon before, and he was from the Plains area, and I forgot the state, Kansas, Nebraska, somewhere out in there. He had done it before. He had, I think it was the flu, some type of upper respiratory illness back in the spring or winter. So he went to his doctor, and he's in his 50s. He went to his doctor, got cleared by the doctor, got cleared by the cardiologist, got down to the, in the North Rim, got down where he needed to be with his group, hiking, and he got very sick. His heart, I don't think it may be altitude, but altitude got in his way, but it was his heart. He had to be medevaced out. Luckily, he was at a station where you could call out and get help. So that does happen. Even a cardiologist didn't consider into effect here of the altitude. So be sure you know where you are going and plan accordingly. It's nothing that's scary. You can go do that, but just be mindful it takes a few days to get used to the altitude. You may have headaches, you may get edema. You usually get pulmonary edema, which is very serious, but luckily mine was in my feet and legs. But I'll know next time. Compression socks. So anyway, I can't think of anything else I need to tell you, except, oh yeah, the final, and I said I was going to rent a car. That was in my budget last time I got to Flagstaff. I decided not to rent a car. I walked around town. It's a little bit confusing. It's a very small town, but the highway, Route 66, the highway is actually very, very busy. Busy with tourists, busy with people who live there going back and forth to work, and the road signs went every which way, and I couldn't have a hard time figuring it all out. I found out when I got there that they have shuttle services in the town. Very nice shuttle service. One, it can take you to the airport in Phoenix. It can take you, they go to Sedona every day. They go to Grand Canyon every day. Several times a day they go. So it was actually cheaper for me to get the shuttle. I was not able to go to Sedona because, remember, I was asked to leave the train station. That was my trip the following day, was to go to Sedona, but I missed that. I did go to the Grand Canyon on the shuttle, let somebody else drive who lives there. So I did have that extra expense. So I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be an expensive trip, but it's just what happens. You have to go with the flow. Take enough extra money, take your charge card, whatever, so that will happen. But when I got home, I had originally planned for $1,000 range without food. Got home and got all my bills. I decided to put all my food on my credit card so that I could have a record of how much I actually spent, and I wanted to tally it up. So with all these diversions I had, and there were many, and with food, it ran to $1,200. It's not bad. So I did this whole trip with food, with the diversions, with the cancellations, with the additions. I upgraded here, I upgraded there, $1,200. Oh, I did think of one thing very important I told you. I did in the first video that's not true. I learned while I was taking this trip. I did tell you that the major train stations all have metro lounges that you're welcome to go in, and for $25 you can go in and stay if you're and wait, and you can take a shower, and they have a little food and TV and whatnot. You can do that if you're in coach. It comes with a roomette or bedroom, but in coach you can do it for $25. I learned that's not true. They do have the metro lounges. I was in LAX, which is in Los Angeles. I was in DC, and I was in Chicago. They were the three main train stations I was in. They all have the lounges, but it's not for anybody. The one in Chicago is the only one where you can get a day pass, and they will only give day passes if they have room to give day passes. Now with me, what I did and what I tell people is act like you know what you're doing. Don't just go and wander around like you're half lost and whatnot. I don't have any problems. I go up and I say, I know what to ask for. I know this, just say it straight up. It helped some people I know who followed me, who weren't as sure. They got declined. So I think that has something to do with it. So not all train stations do have the Metro Lounge available to everybody. I would just say that. The one in Chicago does. Now what they will all do too, here's another thing, here's something I spent extra money on one time, and that was in DC coming back, is I checked my bag for the day. You can do that in all the train stations. For $10 a bag for 24 hours, which is not a bad deal, they will keep your bags for you. So if you're in coach and you don't have access to a Metro Lounge to go put your luggage and whatnot, you can go to the baggage department. It's in the baggage area. Go in there and you can check each bag, $10 for 24 hours. I only carry two. I literally do carry a backpack, and then I have another bag, and I kept my backpack with me, and I just checked one bag. I did that in DC because I wanted to walk around the city for a while. I had some time. Excuse me. No, that was going. Coming back, I did not have time. That was going. So I spent an extra $10. It's well worth it not to have to lug your luggage all around, or not be able to go and enjoy the cities when you do have a long layover. So that is something else you can spend your money on, which is well worth it. So there was one more thing that was well worth it too. Can't think of it right now. But anyway, I do appreciate all of the good feedback I've gotten about the first video. I will put the link in the first video in case down below. I'm going to put it in here. Down